it spreads like wildfire. One reference, another reference, another reference, and before you know it, the lessons are coming from everywhere. But you've got to believe in yourself, and don't be like me. I got a bit impatient, and I got a little bit down in the beginning. Oh, why are students not signing with me? And then it just happens. It just takes off. So don't give up. Believe in yourself, for sure.
Ready to rumble. All right, we are
Yes,
live.
no worries. Got
Mark
it.
Witzmann, nice
Yes.
to meet you.
You too, Ryan.
So basically, I'll just put it in a nutshell. Mark reached out to me and he told me a little bit about his background in the legal profession.
Correct.
So we're going to talk a bit about that today. We're going to talk about native speakerism today. I think this is really important because I know that a lot of my subscribers are from South Africa, and a lot of my viewers, like when I go to my audience, there's a huge amount of people from South Africa. So thank you to those people who are watching my videos for hours on end. I hope they're useful. And I hope that today is useful for you, giving some perspective. Like yesterday, I had the first interview. This is the second. And I think having a South African person is really going to be useful to give some perspective. Yeah, we're going to talk about your experience with two platforms. Maybe we could compare a little bit between iTalki and the other one, because yeah,
okay, so we'll start off with that then. So I am on Amazing Talker as well as iTalki. But what I found in the first couple of weeks is the matching system was a little bit awkward compared to iTalki, which is more founded on merit. So what I mean by that is if you put the work in with iTalki, if you're on the platform, if you're doing the quizzes, if you're answering the students, I think the algorithm works in your favor. Whereas with Amazing Talker, what you've got to do to influence the algorithm is you've got to do an instant match. You've got 3 seconds to do an instant match on Amazing Talker. If you are not in time, you lose out on that match. So it is critical to be sitting at the computer, you know, ready to do a match. And that kind of like frustrated me in the beginning. And then another issue that frustrated me is, but I need to look in a little bit deeper, in all fairness to Amazing Talker. But I believe that if you set a price, that is your price on Amazing Talker. Now, I have a bit of a problem with that because there's a big difference between teaching, let's say, young learners and a university student preparing for IELTS. You should be able to adjust your rate, but I might be wrong. I need to clarify that. I need to dig deeper. So what I did do is I did get a little bit frustrated, admittedly, and I decided, no, you know what? I will deactivate my Amazing Talker, and I'm going, no, not deactivate. So I'm not off the platform. I've just deactivated. I've temporarily suspended it. And I'll tell you why, Ryan. My business was growing on iTalki, and I went with my gut. And that is to really teach the elder people to pursue my IELTS, my business English. And I made a great decision because in the last week, my business has grown. Now, that's not saying I won't go back to Amazing Talker. Sure, I can go back to Amazing Talker. And I can go and teach the kids. But I think my passion now is more the elder students and the pursuit of IELTS and business English, given my background.
Excellent. Great. Wow. That's a lot. So on Amazing Talker, it's like live, like it's 3 seconds and somebody, so it's not like iTalki where people match or people schedule 1 day or 2 days or 2 weeks beforehand. It's like live.
It's live. So what happens is the algorithm matches your credentials with a potential student. You've got 3 seconds to respond. You click a button, hopefully within the 3 seconds, then you can contact that student. You can then ask that student to book a trial lesson with you. And then from there, you hopefully give an excellent trial lesson. And then you have a student for life. Maybe you create a package deal and the student there and then buys a package deal. But that's it. You are not working on the platform. You are not writing articles. You are not correcting students. You are not doing quizzes. It's all about getting this matching system. Now, sure, you can have students that bypass the matching system and contact you directly. But that doesn't always happen. That only starts happening once you've gathered momentum. So really, you've got to have a super good, effective mouse. And it's like being a gunslinger in the online world. You've got to just draw on those guns and fire. And I just thought, no, but also their commission is pretty high. So they start off on 30% commission and 8% tax. So that's it. So the only way to reduce that commission is to work many, many hours. So if you work, for example, 45 hours a month on Amazing Talker, you can reduce your commission to 22% plus the 8% tax.
Okay.
That's doable. So really what you've got to do is work many, many, many hours to get that commission down. But even if you bring it down to 15%, you still got to add another 8% in tax. Now, but now you could argue, but Amazing Talker is great for the kids. So if you are inclined to do young learners, you'll do well on Amazing Talker, because there's a lot of Taiwanese and Hong Kongers and other Chinese that have a lot of 3 to 6-year-olds. And these guys are unbelievable. They are incredible. 3-year-olds are studying Cambridge English. So I would urge, people that maybe want to do the young ones to go across to Amazing Talker, but you will get a bit frustrated in the beginning because of the exorbitant commission.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. Let's talk about IELTS, because you did quickly bring up IELTS. And you know what? I was actually going to create a category in my post for IELTS teachers, for test preparation teachers. But I don't know why I didn't go for that. I thought maybe there are just like so many, so I would have some lovely people reach out to me anyway, and they'd be IELTS teachers anyway, and that's exactly what happened. So I wonder if you could tell us in a nutshell your experience beginning to teach IELTS, and if you have any tips, general tips for other professional teachers who have never taught test preparation. How do they get started?
Right. Okay. So I was fortunate enough to do IELTS in Vietnam for my school. So that's how I started. So we had ongoing professional development and workshops. So obviously I picked up a lot of hints and teaching tips there. But my advice is just do your research. Do your research. There are some amazing websites out there. Follow Ryan's channel. He always gives great tips, and follow the people that are giving the great presentation on IELTS. You do pick up a lot of hints. Do your research like you would research anything, and just understand that you are dealing with students at different levels. You might have a student, for example, that you may feel this student's not quite ready for IELTS. So you might have to scaffold your activities. You might have to stage and scaffold a bit rather than going fully into the final, for example, writing task 1 and just saying, here's a writing task 1, guys, off you go. You need to maybe teach them or remind them of tenses to use and give them the target vocabulary. If you're going to give them a line graph, make sure they understand fluctuate, make sure they understand rise and decrease and just below or just under, or they might need some advice on linkers and cohesive devices. So what I do is I assess each student on their merits, and I tailor-make the lessons. I tailor-make the lessons. If I have a student that is struggling, then I assess that weakness and I adjust the lesson accordingly for that student.
That's right. Yeah, the students are at different levels, and also they have different circumstances. And one thing I've really learned after more than 1,000 lessons teaching IELTS in different contexts, it's that a lot of students, it helps to be primed on the realistic expectations of what's going to happen, because some students get incredibly stressed and they have very high levels sometimes, but it's about streamlining the knowledge to fit the exam, right? To fit the test, right? And sometimes creating that kind of meta-linguistic awareness, or even like the awareness of what IELTS is used for in general, like where it comes from and what it's for, as long as time permits. I found that it's kind of put my students at ease so that they could understand, all right, I have good days and bad days. I might be speaking at a 6 today and I might be speaking at a 7 tomorrow. So let's keep pushing, right?
Yes.
Like one thing might be working for one person and but it's different for another person. And, you know, a lot of students, IELTS students are trying to immigrate. They're trying to go to university in this
Big
place.
pressure.
So it could be a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah, it's
and on
big
the
pressure.
teacher.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you really feel for these students that are doing IELTS. It's like, it's big. It's the big league and it's a big jump. So I do put in a lot of effort. I put in the most amount of effort with the IELTS. And I always believe with anything in life, it's ongoing learning. You know, even as an attorney, you for 20 years of practice, you're still learning new things. You are never an expert. You must always develop. Always develop, always do the research, learn as much as possible, take tips from everyone, experiment, use things, and then you find your path, so to speak. Yes.
Excellent. So I love how we're just weaving in from one thing I wanted to talk about to another,
Yes,
because
sure.
you did bring up we will come to the legal profession in a second, but you did bring up Vietnam, and I started
Yes.
my career in Thailand. I know you taught in Thailand too, right?
Yes,
so
I
this
did.
is a common ground, and a lot of people watching. I mean, you know, these are hot spots for expats to go over and to teach.
For sure.
So I'd like to ask about your experience teaching in Southeast Asia.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I started off in Vietnam, and I started off with kindergarten, and I loved the kindergarten. And I think that was because I just come from quite a demanding corporate world. And I just decided, let's just start off with the relaxed, the more easier lessons. And it kind of brought out my inner child. It was amazing. I loved it. It was easy. It was fun. And then I developed and I went through, you know, the teens and then onto IELTS and some corporate clients. And I enjoyed it. You know, I really, really enjoyed it. The people are friendly and helpful, and life is good there. I would recommend Vietnam to teachers that are starting out. If you can get there at the moment, you actually can. The borders are open. It's a great place to start teaching. It is a cheap place to live, and they do pay you well. And I did enjoy that. Then I went to Thailand for a while, for a brief period. And I loved Thailand. However, the money wasn't, you know, as good in Thailand as it was in Vietnam. So after 3 months, I realized, let me reach out to my school again in Vietnam. And they said, yes, no, please come back. So went to the south of Vietnam, to Vung Tau, and I taught for a great school called ILA, and I just carried on developing. There was another 3 or 4 years there, 2018 to 2021. And again, I just carried on with kindergarten, but then after a while, I kind of left kindergarten. After 3 years, I'd kind of had enough. And then I moved on to the higher levels, the higher teen levels, the IELTS. And then I did some private work for a corporation, which I also enjoyed. And that's where I'm at now, really. I'm enjoying the iTalki and teaching mature students. That's not saying I don't do children. I do children. But I do like the more advanced English. I like the challenge of it, the more challenging grammar, and I enjoy the adults. So I think it's a progression. And, you know, I think every teacher must find their niche. You know, they must find what they enjoy. It's very, very important to do what you enjoy as well. So I've had the whole lot, you know, from age 3 right through to adults.
That's great. Yeah. And the progression doesn't always go up in level or up in fact, even thinking of it as up as a teacher could be problematic, because I think that in some way, like for me, I prefer highly motivated adult learners, especially for academic English, for test preparation. That's my bread and butter. But if you put me in a class with kids, especially if they're lower level, but kids in general, that'd be a challenge for me. I'd have to prepare actually. It's not my kind of cohort, right? So some other people might progress in a different way. They might, you know, start with adults and then realize, wow, I'm so much happier teaching kids. It brings out my inner child. So It's great to get the experience. That's what I think we're laying down, to try to get that experience, especially if you're at the beginning of your career. But it's never too late, as well. Okay, great. So in each of these interviews, I want to bring up one assumption that I have. I think through a few assumptions, and the whole reason is because in this series, I'm trying to shed light on the different struggles and trials and tribulations and successes that other teachers go through, but also on the common assumptions that people may have, which may not be correct. So I'm basically going to give you a true or false question, an assumption I've made about you.
Okay.
We've spoken about native speakerism in our email, so I want to move on to that. So my assumption is that South Africans are generally considered native speakers in Southeast Asia. From your experience, I want you to tell me, is that true or false?
Okay. No, absolutely. In Southeast Asia, yes. In Thailand, it's not a problem for sure. And in Vietnam, it's not a problem. And in Laos and Malaysia and the Philippines, I think it's all good. There was a stage, I feel, where the Chinese weren't so happy with the South Africans. There was a brief period of time, and I'm not too sure what happened there exactly, but I recall a recruiter saying that they have different definitions of what is a native speaker, different definitions, and I wasn't too sure what she meant by that, but I remember I applied for a Chinese platform a few years back, and they had absolutely no problem with me. And then this was when I actually was in Thailand. And then I didn't pursue the interview because I was going back to Vietnam to work full time for my school. And then when I applied at the same company, they just wouldn't even give me an interview. And at that stage, I had become more qualified, more experienced. And it really was the South African situation. And a lot of other South Africans were experiencing this. And there were some other companies that literally just said, no South Africans. So, yes. So I'm not too sure what's going on there. I mean, our English comes from Britain.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure. I don't know if it's because we also have other official languages, and therefore, because we have so many official languages, it's construed as, well, then, you know, English is not prevalent, but English is very prevalent in South Africa. So I'm not too sure what's going on. It certainly doesn't affect me anymore because the whole Chinese scene has actually changed. A lot of these platforms are not operating anymore, which is good for iTalki.
Yeah,
but a lot of like VIP Kids, I don't think is operating anymore. Data ABC is not operating anymore. So I do feel sorry for this whole non-native versus native English speaking situation, because I personally have friends that are non-native and their English is incredible. Yep. They're like band 9, you know, so I think. But then on the other hand, you know, I suppose you've got to draw the line somewhere, because I have also encountered non-native teachers, their English maybe wasn't up to scratch. So it's but then you could get native speakers whose English are not up to scratch. So, you know, what's your take on it?
Well, it's for me, it's not only about proficiency level, it's also like, and complete accuracy. It's also about the teaching, the ability to teach, because I mean, if you're even if you're at the lower end of C2 and you're not completely, like, you know, mimicking a native, you know, you could be a much better teacher for lower level students than a native speaker could be. Native speakers make a lot of mistakes. They have a lot of misconceptions about language learning. I think one edge that non-native English speakers have by default is the fact that they've learned languages, that they've learned at least one language. That is a huge like, I just see that as a huge advantage of having that experience. I do think that
Yes.
we have to draw the line somewhere for sure, but I also recognize that English as a lingua franca is becoming more prominent in the world today. So this is kind of an English that focuses not just on accuracy, but on intelligibility. So on
Yes.
understanding and communication. And this goes against everything we know as IELTS instructors, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
there's so much emphasis on, you know, the 4 criteria, grammar being
Yes.
one of them.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
I would like to see, I know that universities are embracing this in Canada and in other, actually South Africa is where English as a lingua franca, I believe it actually is maybe the birthplace of English as a lingua franca in universities. So as South Africa has actually been very, in terms of academic literacies and more critical pedagogy, you know, looking at language critically. South African universities have kind of been at the forefront of this movement, and I think this makes sense because, as you said, they have such a unique spot in the native speakerism debate, right? So that's my take on it in a nutshell.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. It makes absolute sense. Yeah.
Nice.
Totally. Totally.
Awesome. Well, I do want to make sure that we have time for me to answer your questions after.
Right.
So we'll wrap up in a few minutes. But
Sure,
one
Ryan. No
thing,
worries. All good.
awesome. One thing I just want to say, we mentioned iTalki. I believe when I started on iTalki, way back in the day, South Africans weren't considered native English speakers. I
Okay.
believe they only opened this up in like last year or maybe the year before. And then there were many, many South African speakers coming in. So maybe we've spoken about Southeast Asia, we've spoken about China. Are there any situations where you have been you've answered that question right there. I want to know, are there any situations where you have been treated as a non-native English speaker? But I suppose you answered that question before.
No, not really. I mean, mainly with the online positions, and we're talking like one or two. We're talking one or two online positions. Generally, I've had absolutely no problem. I've been actually complimented on my English. Some people don't even realize that I'm from South Africa. I've had people say, "Oh, you know, you posh European," or "I think you're British," or "You may be Australian." And so, no, I've never really been prejudiced. Certainly not for face-to-face teaching. Not for face-to-face.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about your legal background.
Right.
So could you tell us about your career transition, please?
Yes. So what happened is I started practicing law in 1997. I qualified as a property, what we call them a conveyancing attorney and an attorney back in July 1995. I then went overseas. I went traveling for 19 months, and then I came back and I started my legal career in 1997. And then in 2004, I decided to become a realtor, or as we say in South Africa, an estate agent. And I flirted with law and selling property because I was still in and out of our deeds office, doing the law, doing the research for the clients and the properties that they wanted to buy. And so I was still like kind of doing law as well as selling properties. And then the market hit a slump. And in 2011, I went back to law. And my last law job was amazing. I did the most incredible property developments, really got good exposure. And then I felt like a change. I just thought I want to see the world. And I've always wanted to be a teacher. And I've done a lot of legal lecturing. So maybe teaching will be the same as legal lecturing. And then I enrolled in a TEFL course in 2016, and that was that. And then from 2016 onwards, I have been a teacher. But now what is so amazing with iTalki is that I'm back to law again, because what I'm doing is I'm helping attorneys draft contracts. I'm doing academic writing for museums. And so it's, I just feel like everything has come to this point. Like the totality of all my learning and all my experience it's never been wasted. I'm now using everything I know, my sales background, my legal background, my general knowledge, it's wonderful. My teaching knowledge. And that's what's so amazing with iTalki. It's just like you said on one of your YouTube videos, you were talking about, you really are dealing with highly qualified people with master's degrees. You are 100% right, Ryan. There are some seriously qualified people on iTalki.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And God, it's amazing how things could just come together, because you are not just a language specialist, you're a content specialist. Like, you have an actual disciplinary knowledge, which is incredibly valuable. And when I've looked around at, you know, what's out there on the market, I see some of the most successful teachers on iTalki are teachers who have background in business, in law, in the medical, like nursing, you know, because if you could prepare students for these very specific exams, for you know, different like the OET exam, which is a I believe in a, like an English test, but for doctors or psychiatrists, those teachers are really killing it. So you know, highly qualified teachers could really attract highly qualified students. But it's good to know that even for new teachers, you could be dealing with incredibly qualified students still, like who have a PhD, who have a business, who have a lot of respect in their community, you know. So it's humbling.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, we're just about ready to wrap up, so that we have like 10 minutes Ryan. To talk about other stuff. Is there anything you would like for people to know? You know, is there any social media you would like to share? Anything you'd like to say to people?
Well, I'd just like to say that, you know, all those teachers that are new to this business, just, you know, keep on driving, don't give up, believe in yourself. It does start off slowly, but you know, just give great student service. It's, you know, follow up, don't give up, look after the students, do the PR work, and it spreads like wildfire. One reference, another reference, another reference, and before you know it, the lessons are coming from everywhere. But you've got to believe in yourself, and don't be like me. I got a bit impatient, and I got a little bit down in the beginning. Oh, why are students not signing with me? And then it just happens. It just takes off. So don't give up. Believe in yourself, for sure.
Wow, excellent. The philanthropist, Mark Witzmann. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, sir. Yes, thank you.